One of August Darnell's lifelong dreams will actually happen in New York City very soon. A musical. Cherchez La Femme. With me now is his brilliant co-writer, Vivien Goldman. She's been on with us before, and she's an accomplished musician in her own right, also professor of punk and reggae, among other things, at New York University. To top that off, a retrospective collection of her music is coming out soon as well. Welcome back to Revenge of the 80s Radio, Vivien.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
You've really kept yourself busy these days, haven't you?
You gotta.
But we were talking about this a little bit before when you were on and when August Darnell was on, that the musical was being kicked around between you and he.
Yes. Well, it's been a sort of long-cherished project, and I'd written this book about them called Indiscreet in the 80s when I was living in Paris and mainly working as a musician, doing the tracks with the duo Chantage, which are now all put together with my other work for the first time on the Resolutionary album. And that was gas writing it, and it was a sort of fictionalized, sort of noir version of events where people thought it was very sensational, but I always say actually, there was a slight coyness, and I was urged to tone it down. So wild as it is, it was still toned down from the really crazy days of Kid Creole and the coconuts, which were sort of very tribal, multi-culty combo on the road, having all sorts of experiences, and so I'd really stayed friends with them, which is, fairly unusual for a journalist and the subject, but literally we all just got on to that extent that we, stayed friends. And Adriana, the original Mama Coconut, she moved to New York, and we stayed close. I wrote songs with her. We did all sorts of projects like her documentary together, and me and August were in touch. And at some point, I think I said to him, why don't we just really do it? Because we'd always wanted to do it, and we happened to both be in London, and we sat down and did it, And now it's sort of reaching fruition with La Mama, which of course is a very venerable, esteemed avant-garde space on the Lower East Side in Manhattan, dating from the 60s, and founded by an African-American woman called Ellen Willis, whose spirit is still very strong there. And they've given us this amazing, huge theater to work in. So it's absolutely like the show they used to have on the BBC when I was young, Workers' Playtime. It's fantastic to get into a space like that. And we've pulled the cast together, excellent voices and chemistry building up. So it's feeling good.
When and how long is the play running?
The musical is running from May the 20th to June the 5th. 2016. It's Tuesdays to Saturdays, 7 p.m., and then there's a Sunday afternoon show, Bring the Kids, at 4 p.m. Or those who don't get out much, Sundays at 4 p.m. is a nice time. It's at the Ellen Stewart Theatre, 66 East 4th Street, which is the second floor. And adults, it's $35. Students and seniors, it's $30. So it's more approachable than Broadway, being off downtown.
Vivien, there have been a lot of plays about bands in their past and their history, like the Jersey Boys. This musical, Cherchez La Femme, is not a retrospective of the band or the bands that August Darnell was in, but it's reflective of a lot of his music, actually the music of August and his brother, Stoney Browder.
Very much so. And although the music of Kid Creole is very, very present too, which was more of a tropical funk. But if we cast our minds back to the actual band that recorded Cherchez La Femme, which became a very big dance floor hit, all over the world, it was very much loved. It had such personality. And that ambiance as a band, Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band, was very particular. It evoked a sort of 1930s, early 40s nostalgia that was prevalent in the late 70s and sort of early 80s, the way it always is in nostalgia and fashion. So the singer, Corey Day, sort of had abundant flowing red hair, and she was sort of very sultry, torch singer, chanteuse type in that mold, and she had a very husky voice. It was very haunting, and they captured an era that was quite a vibe, because they were more sort of swing, that was quite different from the tropical funk and the primary colors of Kid Creole and the Coconuts, which more, reflected that early 80s popping sort of era, both in the aesthetic of the palette, and in the music.
That's the thing about August Darnell, and you too, Vivien. As musicians, you always want to do something different.
Well, I suppose, I think, isn't that fairly normal among musicians to want to express their own voice? I mean, some people trot along in a genre, but others, keep on wanting to explore. And sort of August has always been a great synthesizer, a great musical cocktail shaker, really. And, I do think I was definitely influenced by him as an artist myself, where I had obviously a far more limited career in the lyrics, because I gravitated like him to telling stories in the lyrics, and that's why we always had this strong urge to collaborate and write this musical. Though these many years, we joked about it in the day, and then at a certain point, the idea never went away. And we still had that level of creative connection and that back and forth repartee and that banter, just a particular way of communicating. And, it's really good fun. That's why we're friends. And that, I think that is captured in the musical. I have to say it's great to see actors get into the roles and have such fun with them. It's very entertaining, although it's hard work, obviously. But it's fun to see it take shape, and everybody seems to enjoy doing it.
Vivien Goldman is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. You know her as a musician and the punk professor. She is also the co-writer of Cherchez La Femme. It focuses on the great music of Darnell and his brother Stoney Browder, who unfortunately passed away in October of 2001.
Well, the relationship between August and Stoney was very intense, creating like that with your own family. And the power struggles that they experienced, and the community of the tribe, all of that humanity, I think, is present in the musical, but it's not a conventional follow the dot story of the band's development type of musical. It's it's really much more to do with August's own creation myth, the sort of ideas that he played with of loving and yearning and the meaning of love, the meaning of family, betrayal, and just sort of, he's very strong on just the joy of life and the joy of fun and the joy of music. And all of those elements weave together in the musical, although it's not the literal, play it by numbers story of the band that some might expect. August, as you mentioned, August is a great experimenter, and he always likes to push things further, I love that in his aesthetic and in his approach to his work. I always loved the music, you see, because what happened was, how come it arose in a way, is that I was a music writer for papers like New Musical Express, and I did at least one cover story and various stories about Kid Creole and the Coconuts. So I remember experiencing them, even a particular sound check in some theater downtown Manhattan. And I feel like maybe it was the Palladium, if that's possible. Anyway, I just remember that sound check was one of the greatest dances I ever had in my life. And I think because although they played widely, they couldn't play everywhere. not enough people got to experience the intense, uplifting fun of A Kid Creole and the Coconuts show. So, and his stories and his people and his world was already so rich with characters and dynamic things that, it was very alluring. It was very alluring. I loved the world, so I was glad to be able to bring the world to life in a new way for the stage and for a new generation. I think the time is right now as well, because they were so progressive in a very unconscious way. They helped inspire Prince, that developed his band, and he wrote a song for them called The Sex of It, because Prince was inspired by the way that Kid Creole and the Coconuts were mixed race, mixed gender. Not many bands like that. You had to look back to Sly and the Family Stone, really, for that sort of motley tribe, all enjoying being together with all, with all that human interplay that will occur in a tribe, a new sort of tribe,
Vivien, can you tease us a little bit about the story within Cherchez La Femme?
Well, the story is one of love and loss. It's a sort of quixotic tale of a band leader who is set to throw in his entire career to chase his one true lost love, and what happens to him and his beloved band and his backing singers, who are a trio indeed, but not specifically the Coconuts as such, but they are Coconuts-esque because they're a girl trio, and what befalls them and what they learn along the way as they experience all sorts of drama and conflict and cliffhanger excitement in the Caribbean before they, as they're on their quest. They leave New York and then they have to return to New York and make a resolution. So it's fun, and I think it's very funny, and the music does sound great, and we've got some fantastic voices and acting, and I think it's a lovely tale.
All right.
A lovely tale that may surprise a few people. So I really hope to see you there.
I'd love to go see it, Vivien. How are the rehearsals going so far?
Oh, it's very, very exciting. Seeing the actors sort of take shape and the crew bond up, at things gel and coalesce, and the chemistry happen, and friendships form, and a little family forms before your eyes among the cast, because the people do click as if it was real life. The people we've drawn together do click between themselves, and it's amazing to see things begin to bubble, and people find their voice together.
Another note on Cherchez La Femme, Adriana Kagi, the original Mama Coconut, is involved heavily as well.
Oh, yes, indeed, because it wouldn't have been the same without her, and she's still in New York, so it's just sort of very organic for her to be there. And she did create the original style for the Coconuts, and that was part of their appeal, was their very, well-ahead fashion, and always humorous and flirty and with a twist, and always a lot of personality, the various personas they acted out. And that was all Addie. She's a whiz with a needle and a whiz with an imagination and knowing how to interpret the music through style. So she's become our wardrobe person, in effect.
Yeah, she could do pretty much almost anything.
Yes, Adriana is a superwoman indeed.
Cherchez La Femme will play at La Mama, 66 East 4th Street, 2nd floor. The website, Vivien?
The website is, our own website is chercheslafemme musical.com, and then the theatre website is lamama.org.
You can get tickets from both of those sites. Vivien Goldman is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. In addition to co-writing Cherchez La Femme, Vivien has a new album coming out soon, a retrospective of her music between 1979 and 82, Resolutionary. We'll talk about that straight ahead. Launderette from Vivien Goldman on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Vivien's our guest this week. Now, Vivien, your music collection, Resolutionary, featuring some of your best tracks from 79 to 82, will be released soon as well.
Yes, it's all sort of coinciding in quite a cosmic way that I couldn't have planned, really.
It all works out, doesn't it?
Well, it sort of seems to have, yeah. No, it's a fantastic synchronicity, harking back to before I was professoring. You know, I was always writing. That's always a through thread for me. But, you know, before I was professoring and before even I was doing a lot of television as a producer, director type and writer type and even presenter type, you know. And so that's going back a few years to when I was more in the studio type, backing singer type, then you know, then in a band, then doing my own thing, then having my own band, and, you know, and it's all hitting, as luck would have it, just at the same time as the musical is manifesting. So it's a call to the wild inside me, you know, where you're not as tethered by facts, and, you know, you can be more just musical and, you know, and free form, writing funny dialogue. Not as tethered in facts as you have to be when you're a professor.
It features music from when you were with the Flying Lizards, Chantage, and of course your solo work.
Yes, it absolutely does. So for the first time, you know, I had a sort of fairly brief but intense musical career. And to hear it all pulled together for the first time is beautiful for me. Because for me, I hear a sort of artistic voice grow in it. I do. You know, and I don't know whether it's like that for other people, you know, but I've been getting some nice feedback.
Well, my artistic voice tends to tell me to shut up most of the time. Nobody wants to hear mine.
Oh, rubbish.
Your music, Vivien, has been a unique mix of, I would call it, new wave, punk, avant-garde, experimental, and reggae. It's probably from all those influences you've had. How did you take them all in and then create your own special genre, if you will?
My goodness, I just love to hear how you described it, because you sort of seem to sum it up better than me. It really is what it is. It's so much, you know, of its time as I listen back to it. But it still sounds very contemporary, because the cultural sort of bubbling that was going on at the time really laid a foundation for all sorts of things that are happening now. Even, you know, the course I'm about to teach at NYU, sort of Dub Nation, tracing how dub grew into EDM, you know, the whole fragmentary quality of dub, and that was like just a language that I spoke. And personally, I just sort of come up in reggae, my musical experience before I was with the Lizards was doing, you know, semi-professionally or whatever, was being part of reggae backup trios with people like Nana Cherry and Ari Up of the Slits, the late Ari Up, much missed. And, you know, coming from a family with two older sisters, I was, you know, and a musician father, I was I've always been very attuned to harmony. So when I was with the Flying Lizards, I instinctively just did layers of harmony myself. And then when, you know, and I continued sort of that on my own work, and then actually had a harmony duo, because I was just happy singing. I love singing harmony. And that's almost one of the main things that keeps drawing me to music, my love of singing harmony.
Vivien Goldman is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio, in addition to the Cherchez La Femme musical coming out. Resolutionary, a collection of her music from 1979 to 1982, is out, spanning two groups, her solo career. Talk about some of the tracks on the collection.
I was invited to join the Flying Lizards, and in retrospect, how lucky I was, because there was an enormous sense of fun. And it was a collective, and a lot of stuff was done in the studio. It wasn't a live band. It was headed by David Cunningham. It was really one of the first sort of synth, new wave, avant-garde. And what had happened was that David Cunningham and another singer had a hit with a song called Money, a version of the Strong Barrett Strong, a version of the old Motown hit, I should say. And that had earned him a full-length album deal with Virgin. It was pretty major. And Deborah, the original singer, didn't really want to pursue it further. It had just been a little sort of giggle for her, really. And I was invited into the fold to be the girl singer. And it was such fun being with especially Steve Beresford and David Cunningham. I also got to be around David Toop to an extent, but I think of it as quite a lot me, Cunningham, and Beresford as our musketeers for the Flying Lizards as the core of the crew, although people like Viv Albertine also played on it, but at separate sessions. You know, it was our crew, you know, and people came out of the free jazz scene because we all used to do stuff at the London Musicians Collective, so the headspace was really improvised music in a way. But at the same time, we wanted to make, you know, progressive pop. And my songs on there, you know, they sort of very much twisted feminist disco on Herstory, which was incidentally sampled by The Roots. And as Water on their Phrenology album, which was a gold album. So it did find some heroes. And then there was another one called A Window, which is very eerie, you know, and that's why I got to do loads and loads and loads of harmonies, which I love. And then because of that, I somehow was able to emerge into doing a solo 12-inch 45, which came out on 99 Records in America, and I put out myself. And I put out myself in the UK on a label called Window via Rough Trade. And that was very... that's probably what you mean when you talk about sort of punky, dubby. It's very, very original. But I did have that sound in my head, and it was very inspired by the particular bass sound of my co-writer, George Oban, who is the original bass player for Aswad. And... you know, I composed it all in one go. It's a little story, and it's sort of very funny. And then on the other side, I had a more militant track called Private Armies, and PA Dub, which is where the producer Adrian Sherwood really went to town, and in many people's opinion made one of his strongest dubs ever. And Private Armies was a militant rebel sort of song that they used to like to play. Apparently, I was told by Rock Against Racism DJs at rallies, so that was good. And then after that, you know, came out in 2 countries, and I sort of found myself through one thing and another, spending a lot of time in Paris, and I just found myself in a situation where I was very close to this other young girl singer-songwriter called Eve Blois, and we wound up sharing a flat together. And we created Chantage very organically, and through our involvement with Jean-François Bizot, the founder of the magazine Actuel and the radio station Radio Nova, we wound up also being on their associated friend label, which was Celluloid, a sort of free jazz progressive label. And that also did a lot of early hip-hop. So it was a natural outcome, because we were doing African music radio shows together. We were singing together. We did backup singing for an African artist. We made a record. But it was great because thanks to Celluloid at the time, we got the chance to pour all sorts of different musicians together in our own version of an eclectic mix. You know, we had Manu Dibango's guitar player, Hungarian gypsy violin player, George on bass, and Bruce Smith from Public Image Limited on drums. So, you know, but it was our reality. You know, people might not understand it as such an unusual mix, but the reality is that rhythm, that sound was what we were living in our lives. So you can never call it appropriation, like as people are so fond of doing nowadays. It's Only Money could really have only been done because of that very cosmopolitan Parisian vibe that Chantage were living, because the African music was so much a part of our scene, as was the new wave. Naturally, she'd been in a punk band, Odeur, before we made Chantage. And yeah, so having that twist of having Manu Dibango's guitar player mixed with my roots, which was the a steel pan player from the Mangrove Steel Pan Orchestra, which was up the road from me in London, in Ladbroke Grove, the front line. So he was one of the arrangers of our local key orchestra, and having all that mix with a drummer from Pill and so on, and Steve Beresford there doing our eclectic avant-garde feel to the keyboards. It was very much a personal mix, especially that came out on its only money.
And of course, as a professor at NYU, it must be refreshing to see that a lot of young people are, and unfortunately, while they're being flooded or having pretty mundane, auto-tuned music shoved down their throats, they're interested in old punk and reggae and the music that you're teaching to them.
Well, I find that the people who come to my classes are very drawn to the authenticity that lies behind some of the chart material, which obviously is authentic to today, but the real root stuff. Like I was thinking of Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson. There was recently a hit. They had to, tip the hat to George Clinton, P-Funk. And really, in a way, what Kid Creole did was a very particular progressive synthesis at the time, because August had this sort of tropical Caribbean style background, as well as being a denizen of, funk and disco, downtown New York. So he pulled it all together, and with a sort of contemporary dance edge in Kid Creole and the Coconuts, which actually did also spring fully formed from the mind of his then wife, Adriana Kagi. And, in the original Heady Brew, there were all sorts of people passing through for various lengths of time and involvement. But it was somewhere always August's thing that he jumped ship from his brother to do, in a way, just his particular vision. And his narrative is sort of revisited in Cherchez La Femme, or reinterpreted for now, viewed anew, sung anew, as one of the songs says. It's born again. It's born again for this show at the La Mama Theatre.
Once again, Vivien Goldman's retrospective album, Resolutionary, is coming out very soon. Keep an eye on our website, revengeofthe80sradio.com, for more news on that. And starting May 23rd at La Mama on 66 East 4th Street on the second floor, the musical Cherchez La Femme, co-written by August Darnell and our guest, Vivien Goldman. Thanks again, Vivien, for coming onto the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Always a delight to be with you here on Chris on Revenge of the 80s.